The story begins with his reincarnation into a fantasy world. The setting was serene, illuminated by flickering candles, starkly different from the modern lighting of Earth. This realm, less developed in comparison, seemed an unfamiliar place for someone like him, an orphan who had perished from overwork and had no home. Yet, for a child in such a position, it appeared to be an affluent household to end up in. Another sign of the family's wealth was the extraordinary beauty of the child's birth mother, who gazed at him with loving eyes, as though assuring him of a promising future in matters of love life. 3 years later, from his cradle, he caught his first glimpse of the outside world. Even at such a young age, the vastness of the world beyond the window struck him profoundly. His brief exploration was interrupted when the maid called out to him with concern, swiftly picking him up and cautioning him about the dangers outside. It was then that he discovered his family's connection to the Grand Duchy, a prominent entity within the kingdom. Apologizing to the maid, his identity was revealed. He was the son of Grand Duke Dragonia, a duke by title in the kingdom of Lionheart. At the age of 8, he began his training in swordsmanship, aspiring to become a knight in this fantastical realm. The wonder of exploring whether he would also learn to harness the sword and the aura during his training. His mentor was none other than Sir Gothic, a knight sent from the palace, known as the Holy Knight. Upon their meeting, Sir Gothic sensed the will of the goddess in the young boy, finding the encounter immensely rewarding. Introducing himself as Leon, the child could not help but wonder about the title Holy Knight. Polite and eager, he requested that Sir Gothic take good care of him, inquiring about the unfamiliar term. At 14, the training was grueling. He was asked to drag a large rock tied to a rope, sweating profusely. In an outburst of frustration, Leon expressed how difficult it was to deal with Sir Gothic's training regime. To the young boy, it felt like mistreatment. Over the years, he learned that the title of Holy Knight referred to a powerful entity, cloaked in human form. Achieving such a position was an incredibly arduous feat. Sir Gothic explained that one could attain the title through rigorous training, completing quests, earning experience, and valor. The Holy Grail, a ritual involving the drinking of holy water, was also part of the process. Furthermore, as the son of Dragonia, Leon bore the responsibility of mastering the knowledge required to one day take up the mantle of Grand Duke. Gothic emphasized the importance of unwavering focus, not just in combat, but in preparing for Leon's eventual role as the successor to the Grand Duke. As Leon trained, he found himself contemplating the existence of a deity. Though he did not adhere to any specific religious belief, he yearned for salvation, hoping for recognition from the goddess. At 16th, he wandered the world, seeking acknowledgement from the higher power to become a holy knight. It was said that fame and good deeds would draw her attention, an idea Leon found absurd until he noticed a commotion at the distance. Amidst the chaos, a concerned voice questioned the influx of orcs, asking Sir Gildas if it could be the end, pleading for the goddess's protection. Despite the overwhelming threats, countless opportunities to wield his sword arose, leaving Leon anxious. He angrily questioned the audacity of invaders tainting the kingdom's territory, striking down monsters with his sword, and reflecting on the kingdom's long-standing battle against such threats. At 20th, Leon faced constant challenges, until he finally met the goddess. She acknowledged him as the son of Wulfric Dragonia and confirmed the truth in their words. Calmly, she presented him with a quest to test his honor and faith, which Leon humbly accepted, addressing her as Ariana. The existence of the goddess was now undeniable. After years of arduous toil, Leon ascended to become a holy knight. His path led him to countless battles against orcs, goblins, and an evil cult. His valor eventually earned him the title of War Knight, granting him authority to lead other knights. He led a conflict that resulted in the demise of 700,000 orcs, men, women, and children alike, which left him feeling revitalized for the carnage caused. After 35 years, the revered Argent Majesty Lionheart, known as the Living Saint and Demigod, met his demise while Leon was locked in battle with the archdemons summoned by the Empire. The uprising of demons, alongside the ever-present orcs, added to the chaos, underscoring the necessity for humanity to embrace faith in the gods and live devotedly. Despite the aggravation caused by the Empire's magicians, a pressing need arose to elect a new holy knight, one who would succeed King Lionheart, who had died honorably. Amidst the turmoil, the goddess addressed Leon Dragonia, acknowledging him as her faithful knight, a symbol of honor and faith, and selected him to ascend as the successor of her will. As she descended upon him, Leon humbly bowed before the goddess, accepting the weighty responsibility that came with the position, despite the exhaustion it brought. His commitment was unwavering. He could not afford to disappoint the kingdom's citizens or the knights who followed him. Transferring the sacred treasure, the lion heart, to Leon, the goddess entrusted him with safeguarding the Holy Grail. Thus, he ascended to become the Grand Duke of Dragonia and the king of the Lionheart Kingdom. Over the course up to 80th year of his life, numerous significant events unfolded: a trilogy of major wars against orcs, the evolution of a peculiar hunchback goblin into an archdemon, and the Empire's constant efforts to create chaos. One day, a guard alerted Leon, addressing him as His Majesty, about the Empire's dark magicians resuming their experiments, defying divine authority. Outraged, Leon condemned their actions as foolish and dangerous, calling them divine separatists attempting to defy the natural order. He ordered the gathering of knights, fueled by his belief that extending human rights to those unworthy was a grave mistake. Conquering them all seemed like a necessary course of action. 96th year of his life, the Empire crossed a pivotal line. The Emperor, with aggression in its tone, offered 3 million live sacrifices, pleading desperately for their request to be granted. The Emperor, once fearful of death, tragically ended his own life, along with 3 million citizens from the capital, summoning the Lord of Chaos in a final act of despair. Leon, undeterred, rallied his knights and unsheathed a holy sword still marked with the grime from the previous year's orc encounters. He commanded his guards to march toward the Empire. 121st year, they set forth toward the Empire. Yet despite his earnest efforts, the world seemed to be crumbling. Contrary to his deepest desires, he endeavored to conquer all darkness with the purity that resonated across the land. Yet he couldn't halt the advance of evil. One of his guards, addressing him as Lord Leon, prompted a response from Leon, who acknowledged Sir Arin and reflected on his father's honorable demise as he joined the gods' feast. The goddess's words echoed in his mind, and Leon rallied his troops, urging them to observe the scene before them. He noted the fear trembling in their comrades, the haunting sound of villains echoing across the land, and the heart-wrenching sight of women consoling their weeping children, silently enduring their own grief. These were the same individuals who had stolen away their brothers. Leon shouted, enraged, questioning whether they could hear the anguish of their brothers, the young ones grasping at the fading flames of resistance, questioning whether they could sense the villains who had torn away their loved ones, and witness the knights striving to sow seeds of hope in a land drenched in blood. He asked further whether they perceived the threats attempting to desecrate everything. Leon commanded his troops to feel enraged within and to cry out against the fools deceived by false victory. He addressed the goddess, possessing the holy sword, the holy spear, and the holy grail, declaring that even the first knight would be unable to halt the evil that had spread far beyond the horizon. He stressed the importance of honor, reiterating that as long as they held on to it, they would not falter. Seeking guidance, Leon appealed to the goddess, questioning what this foolish knight should do for her. In response, the goddess assured him of her unwavering presence, declaring that she would remain by his side until the very end. She addressed him as her beloved, honored knight. With a resounding cry for Lionheart, all troops charged into battle. That winter marked the culmination of their struggle, where they engaged in the ultimate conflict against billions of devils swarming the earth. Barbarian slaves were ruthlessly used as human shields, while civilian knights, armed with spears and shields, valiantly met their honorable demise alongside the glorious knights. As the chosen agent representing all gods and holy temples, Leon stood alone, confronting and vanquishing the demons until the very end. Countless demon lords and archons fell before him, demonstrating the might of the Holy Knight against those vile adversaries. 217th year, the unending winter persisted. Up to 256th year into his long life, Leon destroyed the last remaining demon gate, leaving the demons with nowhere to escape. Furiously, he shouted at these servants of evil, condemning them to remain trapped in this world with him, vowing to exterminate every last one of them. It wasn't him who was stuck. It was they who were trapped in this realm with him. Despite this, 300 years passed before Leon landed the final strike on the Archon. A blue portal appeared, and a voice asked if Hari was all right, witnessing a man defeat the Archon with a single strike. Leon stood inside the portal, his voice deep and resonant as he replied, "Rise and continue fighting." When Hari inquired about Leon's identity, standing naked in a radiating golden aura, he responded, stating that he was the king of Lionheart, the knight of the glorious knights, and the executor of the Holy Temple's will, Leon Dragonia Lionheart. It shocked the girl named Hari and her colleague. It had been 3 centuries since Leon encountered the Earthlings, marking the return of the Night King. A notification screen appeared, announcing that he had defeated all the demons in his realm. Before all of this on Earth, a mysterious gate emerged, its ranks shrouded in an unidentifiable black hue. Both the Korean Hunter Association and the World Hunter Association urged the nation's major guilds to join a raid, but their requests were declined due to the gate's unknown difficulty. Ultimately, the government mandated the Korean Hunter Association to venture in first, effectively issuing an execution order. Hari recalled that inside the gate, what greeted her was a shocking sight: a solitary naked man. Han Hari, an associate manager at the Korean Hunter Association, was deep in thought when her colleague called out to her, expressing concern while handing her a cup of coffee. Acknowledging her exhaustion, Hari wearily thanked him. Kim Jin-soo, the head manager of the Korean Hunter Association, inquired about the situation. Hari responded, stating that no one had believed it. Jin-soo remarked that such skepticism was expected, given the gate's classification as a black-ranked demon gate, which housed even the Great Devil. He acknowledged the miraculous feat of her returning alive without any aid from other guilds, let alone clearing the gate, an accomplishment attributed to just one man. Leon was then questioned if he was a survivor from inside the gate, to which he confirmed, identifying himself as a survivor from another world. This confused Hari and Jin-soo, who listened in from the other side of the glass window. There have been sporadic instances of individuals surviving within the gate realm. These gates, which had appeared worldwide over the past 3 decades, shared commonalities. They depicted worlds on the brink of destruction or already destroyed. At times, survivors returned to Earth, retaining unbelievable strength gained in the demon realm. Consequently, the government had made efforts to support these survivors, devising plans to scout them. Hari stressed the urgency of scouting these survivors, particularly highlighting the unparalleled strength of a specific individual. Jin-soo seemed to share her sentiment. He stated that, regardless of the circumstances, even an A-rank hunter had to risk their life when facing a high-ranking demon. Yet, Leon had managed to eliminate the Great Devil with just one attack, a feat that even the most skilled S-rank hunters would fear. It wasn't just a kill. Leon had utterly dominated it. Jin-soo's primary concern was the potential cultural differences, especially considering how Leon referred to himself. It hinted at royalty or something of the sort. Ever optimistic, Hari believed she could sense something positive in his voice, a notion that he was genuinely a good person. However, this idea was shattered when Leon's voice boomed, addressing the person in front of him as a lowly being. Hari and Jin-soo were startled by his tone. Leon continued, angrily bellowing about the barrier that even monsters couldn't breach, expressing outrage at anyone daring to tarnish the noble Lionheart name. The manager, taken aback, questioned whether this individual could truly be considered a good person. Hari cautiously attributed his behavior to potential cultural differences. 15 minutes earlier, Leon had reflected on his feelings of foreignness in certain aspects. It was a given, considering his background. He had been an orphan who toiled through his 20s, meeting his end due to exhaustion, only to be reincarnated into another world. As king and knight of a kingdom for over a century, he had subjugated the demon world, spending the next 200 years hunting demons. Now, 300 years had passed, and he felt relief in retaining some memories of his past life on Earth. A bald man spoke to Leon, addressing him as Leon Dragonia Lionheart. Leon pondered the situation, recognizing that revealing his past as an Earthling wouldn't serve his interests. He wondered if being a Night King who had lived for 300 years in another world was more impressive than being a man who died from overworking in his 20s. Furious, he demanded that the man refer to him as His Majesty, calling him a peasant. The man, shocked, hesitated but complied. Leon observed that the man was playing along, pondering whether this was due to the man's kind nature or if the government was simply cautious in approaching survivors like him. The man cautiously inquired about the Black Gate, or rather, Leon's world and his encounters with the hunters, asking about the demon slayings. When Leon fell silent, the man pressed further, asking if Leon had forgotten something. Hesitantly, he sought clarification, unaware of the context. Leon proudly declared his role in eliminating the evil species and protecting knightly honor. Then, unexpectedly, he appointed the man as his temporary secretary, granting him the privilege of documenting the momentous event. The man, taken aback, speculated that it might be a cultural difference. Still discontent, Leon demanded proper etiquette when addressing royalty. Using a translated phrase, Leon expressed his hunger, which the bald man urgently acknowledged, promising to arrange a meal. Leon, seeking information about the current world, requested details about Earth during his absence. The man murmured in affirmation, agreeing to provide Leon with an explanation. He began by telling him that the nightmare had commenced 30 years ago when gates began appearing worldwide, unleashing monsters and demons. Since then, the world had been in a constant state of emergency, facing significant losses. Each gate, he explained, carried a distinct theme and a clear quest. If left unattended, the gate would trigger a dungeon break, leading to monster invasions on Earth. The man informed Leon that the meal might be ready, just as they heard a knock on the room's door. Leon reflected on the differences, noting that in his world, demons had appeared in mass. Unlike these gates, which had specific themes and quests, it seemed as though they were designed to train humans through trials. The bald man enthusiastically entered the room, carrying food for His Majesty. Inspecting the dish, Leon recognized it as bone broth simmered for hours, seasoned with salt, pepper, and crunchy kimchi, a familiar taste akin to the soul food of his laboring days on Earth. The dish carried sentimental value for him, as familiar foods often felt more comforting than new ones. Yet, as he tried to hold on, saliva began to accumulate in his mouth. Puzzled, he questioned the nature of the dish. The man clarified, calling it xiaoliang tang, known as the soul food of peasants. To his surprise, Leon angrily shouted, feeling insulted. He could not fathom that a royal from another kingdom would be served what he considered a peasant's dish. Outraged, he proclaimed his titles. He was a royal from another world, the proxy of the gods, the guardian of the Holy Grail, and the possessor of the Holy Blade and Holy Spear. The man murmured, seemingly not understanding the situation. Leon's anger flared, and he grimly demanded the inferior peasant leave the room. He continued to list his titles: the Slayer of Malice, Lord of Chaos, Adversary of the 23 Great Devils, and the embodiment of the 300-year war history. Leon then reflected on his return to Earth after 3 centuries. His immediate observation was the chaotic state of the world. He attributed this disorder to the lack of proper religious faith and believed it was the duty of the royal family to enlighten the foolish peasants. Despite being back on Earth, Leon retained his identity as a Night King. Later, as Leon ate steak, Jinsu appeared surprised that Leon recognized their chicken and black bean noodles. Jinsu encouraged Hari, who was flustered, to take the lead, suggesting that Leon might be more intrigued by her. Hari, though complimented on her bravery, expressed frustration, noting that the only thing Leon had acknowledged was her courage. Peeking in from the door, she apologized deeply for interrupting the king's meal. In response, Leon wiped his lips and recognized her as the swordswoman from earlier, inviting her to sit down. Pleased by the positive attention, Hari hesitated before inquiring about the meal's quality. Leon calmly responded, acknowledging the sincerity and finesse of the chef. He clarified that the issue wasn't with the simplicity of the food, but with the attitude displayed toward the king. He added, emphasizing that foreign royalty should be treated with due respect, in accordance with the status of their nation. Hari, feeling apologetic for her lack of knowledge and any disrespect shown, assured him she hadn't intended any offense. Leon assured her it was fine and redirected the conversation. He asked if her name was Han Hari, and then expressed awareness of the current world, asking if demons, those malevolent beings, had appeared on Earth. Hari confirmed the statement, revealing that her sole mission was to persuade him to join the Hunter Association. She contemplated how important it was to get him to join their cause. Eagerly, she asked if he would grant permission for the South Korean government to take care of him from that point onward. The 21st century intelligence war was focused on recruiting survivors, and it was crucial to prevent them from aligning with other nations. Leon asserted that as long as he was established in this world, it was his duty to take to the battlefield. As an honorable knight, it was only proper for him to engage in combat. Hari eagerly asked if he would consider joining their Hunter Association. Leon, with a glint in his eyes, responded that a king could not serve in another nation's military. Instead, he intended to establish a new order of knights in this world. Hari was shocked, but could only nod in response. Curious about the reaction from higher authorities, she asked Jinsu. He explained that there wasn't much to say, except that they needed to offer as much support as possible. He felt relief that Leon hadn't aligned with another country or major guild. In a weary tone, Hari expressed her frustration with the idea that their association, linked to the government, had to show deference to Leon. Hari's anger flared as she vented her frustration at the situation, attributing the mess to the influential and wealthy guilds who wielded power and influence. The manager responded in agreement, acknowledging the Phoenix Guild's involvement in the matter. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by an urgent alert signal, indicating a dungeon break at the Honan Plains. Jinsu's eyes widened in shock at the implications of a dungeon break occurring at such a critical location, a vital granary. The potential consequences for food production were dire. Meanwhile, Hari reflected on the Phoenix Guild's association with the renowned S-rank hunter Li Yongwan, pondering whether his capabilities could not prevent the orange-colored gate from wreaking havoc. Jinsu's anger flared as he expressed his firm belief that the guilds may have ulterior motives behind this incident. He demanded immediate action to prevent any schemes from unfolding. Unbeknownst to them, Leon listened attentively from behind the closed door, gaining a comprehensive understanding of the situation. He contemplated the potential ramifications of a dungeon break, recognizing the devastation it could cause to the land, infecting the soil and hampering crop growth. Observing the situation, as a knight of light, he quietly questioned Demera about their well-being in the Hall of Gods, while Leon praying in preparation to face the looming crisis. Meanwhile, another soldier called out to Hunter Yongwan, seeking answers amidst the chaos. Yongwan, an S-rank hunter and the guild master of the Phoenix Guild, stood amidst the turmoil, inquiring if the person addressing him was from the association. Mockingly, he addressed Section Chief Kim and teased the rookie, Hanhari. Jinsu, furious, seized with anger. He believed Yongwan had orchestrated the dungeon break as retaliation for their refusal to accept the Phoenix Guild's demands. The Phoenix Guild had persistently sought tax exemptions for their substantial profits from gate-related activities, including magical crystals and monster materials. The request had amounted to a staggering tax exemption of 1 trillion. Jinsu viewed this as an act of vengeance for the guild's unmet demands. Frustrated by the excessive privileges enjoyed by large guilds, Jinsu found it outrageous that the Phoenix Guild would resort to such extreme measures simply because their requests had been denied. Meanwhile, Hari confronted Hunter Yongwan sternly, emphasizing the urgency of closing the gate immediately. She stressed the critical time frame of 1 week, warning of the catastrophic risks if the gate remained open for too long. Yongwan responded calmly, with a faint smile, acknowledging the situation's severity and the imminent transfer of gate authority. He expressed concern for the critical condition of his guild members, noting the challenges they faced in executing a raid with such serious injuries. Despite his intention to attempt the closure by the next day, he remained uncertain about the outcome given their circumstances. Hari's eyes narrowed as she confronted him with grim seriousness, questioning his lack of patriotism and the dire consequences they faced. Yongwan, however, casually dismissed her concerns, remarking on her perceived childishness. He reminded her of a discussion they had in the past, cynically highlighting the prevalent notion in this world that justice equates to money and power. Leon, silently observing the exchange, couldn't help but reflect on their shallow and outdated perspectives. Suddenly, Hari was taken aback as Leon made his presence known, stepping forward with a commanding presence. She hesitantly addressed him, respectfully referring to him as Leon, before abruptly corrected herself. Leon, adopting a serious demeanor, advised Hari against using a king's name so casually, asserting that she could address him only by his title. Yongwan, carelessly addressing Leon, asked about his identity, commenting on his Western appearance. This provoked an intense reaction from Leon. His eyes narrowed, and he silenced Yongwan with a fierce expression, questioning his audacity to speak in such a manner. Yongwan, enraged, anger boiled in his mind, offended by Leon's words, but Leon remained unmoved, his expression cold and resolute. Hari quickly intervened, addressing him as Hunter Li Yongwan in an attempt to diffuse the tension. Realizing that Leon was a survivor from another world, Yongwan apologized for his earlier rudeness and introduced himself as a member of the Phoenix Guild. Curiously, he asked if Leon was associated with the Gray-Colored Guild. Nonchalantly, Leon responded with reluctance. He was not one to repeat himself, especially not for someone who had been so disrespectful. He turned to Jinsu, his eyes narrowing, and asked for a concise summary of the situation, as he lacked the specific details about the gate. The manager, sensing Leon's seriousness, felt a flicker of hope. He wondered if Leon might offer his assistance, though the question still lingered in his mind. Hari, in turn, clarified the gravity of the situation. She emphasized the critical nature of a dungeon break, explaining that such events caused a massive outpouring of demonic energy, which infected the land and rendered it infertile for crops. The Honan Plains, a vital granary, was now in critical jeopardy. Leon, fully aware of the gravity of the situation, sought a solution and pressed for further details. Hari, after a brief moment of reflection, proposed the urgent need to cleanse the affected area immediately. She emphasized the importance of clearing the dungeon entirely to prevent further contamination and restore the land to normalcy. Leon, recognizing the severity of the threat, acknowledged that the infected land and the expanding gates posed substantial problems. He instructed Hari to assemble their forces without delay, assuring her that once the time limit for the initial raid had expired, he, as king, would take direct action. However, he reminded her of a crucial point. As a foreign monarch, he could not engage in military activities on another nation's soil without complying with the appropriate regulations. He insisted that before proceeding, permission from the local king must be obtained. Still hesitant, Hari voiced her concerns. Leon's tone grew stern as he emphasized the necessity of following the proper procedures. He questioned how one could call themselves an honorable knight if they disregarded the laws of others' nation. He stressed that protocol must be followed, urging her to contact her king and seek the required authorization. Yongwan, overhearing the exchange, muttered that this individual was even more inflexible than he was. Eventually, a formal request was made, and following Leon's directive, Hari began preparing the necessary items. Yet, she hesitated, questioning the purpose of these preparations. Leon clarified that the objective was to purify the infected land, which required the use of the straw dolls. Hari, uncertain about the process, inquired if the dolls were truly necessary. Leon confirmed their importance, but added that only certain dolls would suffice. He asked if the dolls had been crafted by the wives, and Hari nodded. The second requirement was that the creators must be women who had given birth. Leon then insisted that all the dolls be presented to him, prompting an unexpected and somewhat absurd doll-making competition. Participants gathered, presenting their creations. As the event unfolded in the middle of the plains, Leon critiqued each doll with a sharp eye. One by one, the creations failed to meet his standards. He described the designs as metaphysical eccentricities that dishonored the name of Lionheart. His frustration mounted as he angrily questioned the authenticity of women claiming to have given birth when it was clear they had not. He deemed them foolish for not understanding the gravity of the situation. Hari, too, struggled to present an acceptable doll. After several failed attempts, it seemed that none would meet the required standard. The 89th participant, an elderly married woman, stood quietly in the room, drawing Leon's attention with her creation. He asked her how many children she had given birth to which she replied that she had given birth to 12. Leon marveled at her, seeing her as the epitome of a living patriot. As was his custom, he expressed his appreciation, mentioning that under normal circumstances, he would personally send knights with medals and gifts. However, given the current situation, he could not do so. Instead, he took the woman's hand in his, acknowledging that the conditions had been fulfilled. With that, he conjured a large cup from a blue portal that materialized from his hand and began chanting. In a voice that resonated with reverence, he invoked the spirit of the Earth Mother, offering the doll of harvest and requesting that it be accepted. A golden light emanated from the cup, leaving the onlookers in awe. Hari gasped in amazement as he watched the cup fill with water on its own. Leon continued chanting, describing how the sun was rising, casting a crimson hue on the clouds. He spoke of the dawn of a new day, one that would mark a special beginning for their world. Yongwan, alarmed, noticed the water droplets moving into the doll, which had only moments ago stood on its own. Meanwhile, Leon, studying the ground, declared his greetings to Mother Earth, Demera, the god of life and abundance, remarking that it had been a long time since divinity had descended upon the land. He continued with his chants, offering salutations to the mighty Earth Mother, Demera, the divine being presiding over life and fertility. Leon looked down solemnly as he spoke of the new territory being plagued by malevolence, its land tainted and corrupted. He acknowledged the presence of evil beings, but noted that there was no trace of divinity, fearing that the disrespect present would tarnish the sanctity of the divine. He cast a sideways glance at the guild master as he voiced his concern. Demera's deep voice responded, noting that ignorance and greed were not always considered sins, as they were inherent traits of mortals. She then asked what Leon intended to do next. Unfazed, Leon replied that it was relatively simple to assimilate among the swordsmen, but the power wielded by a conqueror held divine authority. He explained his aim to establish a balance where duty and authority stood shoulder to shoulder. His goal was to enlighten the uninformed and guide them toward the correct path until a new pantheon emerged in the realm. Demera's voice softened as she asked if Leon sought a favor from her. Leon bowed his head respectfully, addressing her with sincerity. He spoke of the free people of the earth suffering from malevolent energy, acknowledging that this was not her wish. Yet he pleaded for her to heal and purify the land. Leon was acknowledged as the temple's champion by Demera through the doll, which dripped a droplet of water. She remarked that this world's soil was not her body, but she would imbue the land with her divinity, replacing this thirsty earth with her essence. As a result, all who walked upon the land would become his allies. A yellow light began to emerge from the earth, and Leon addressed those present, urging them to pay attention. He reminded them that this was a realm endowed with divine blessings, where every living being had a righteous duty to flourish and thrive. The crops began to look full and flourishing, signaling their transformation. Yongwan's voice boomed, urging caution. He warned that magically cultivated crops could be harmful, insisting that it was common knowledge. Meanwhile, Leon expressed disdain for his ignorance, defending the crops as divinely blessed and rebuking Yongwan for labeling them as poison. Leon's warning underscored the need to refrain from defiling the goddess with careless words. Yongwan, now agitated, racked his brain, realizing his plans might be jeopardized. He was determined not to let it fail and vowed to expose what he believed were lies. Despite his anger, he urged cooperation for the people's safety and promised to take steps to reveal what he saw as fraudulent. He offered to bring in an appraiser to authenticate the situation. One of Yongwan's guild members stepped forward and began the process by drawing a magical circle over the crops. This triggered the emergence of a window displaying information, showing that the rice was classified as rare and possessed divine blessings from Demera, the goddess of life and fertility. The surprising revelation that this rice could cure 3 diseases, including cancer, shocked everyone present, including Hari and Jinsu. After this discovery, Jinsu directed someone to fetch a pot from the chief's house. The rice was cooked, and upon tasting it, they observed a significant increase in benefits: stamina recovery of 100 per minute, mana recovery of 50 per minute, and a total duration of 8 hours. Essentially, it functioned as a powerful enhancer. Jinsu, perplexed, questioned how such simple rice could possess the same potency as a 3 million coin bottle of reinforcement. Hari, unable to contain her excitement, urgently called the manager to share the breakthrough. The manager advised her to finish chewing first before speaking, to which she admitted being curious and had inadvertently consumed a bug. This revelation shocked him, as she experienced beneficial effects from consuming a bug. This occurrence made them wonder if the blessing extended across the entire land. Jinsu considered the possibility that a free reinforcer might benefit all living beings. Excitedly, they ventured into the plains, catching bugs and encouraging one another to gather as many as possible to enter the gate fully buffed. This discovery significantly boosted the motivation of the Hunter Association's raiding team. Demera addressed Leon in a familiar tone, calling him a child. He respectfully acknowledged her as the goddess, and Demera expressed a sense of completion in her role, stating her intent to leave. Leon, grateful, expressed deep remembrance for the divine love she had bestowed upon them. Demera then requested permission to impart one final lesson to make sure to feed himself before vanishing. Hari, intrigued, started to question Leon, but he swiftly explained the concept of divine power. Hari continued her inquiry about the existence of a god in this world. Leon admitted uncertainty, emphasizing that a world sustained by divine power formed the foundation of a proper life. He then directed attention to the soldiers, indicating their readiness to enter the gate, now that they were fully prepared. Yongwan's comrade expressed concern, addressing him as the guild master and worrying about potential issues arising from their current situation. Yongwan, visibly upset, vented his frustration about the interference of the survivor, blaming the predicament on this individual. He expressed a strong desire for the survivor to perish inside the gate, contemplating it as a potential solution. His comrade, taken aback, inadvertently uttered Yongwan's name, but was reassured not to fret. Yongwan mentioned that the gate had already been partially raided, and the soldier reflected on the challenging nature of the middle section of the gate's interior. He noted, however, that only one A-rank hunter remained inside, Hanhari. Despite acknowledging Leon as a survivor with a supportive role rather than combat prowess, Yongwan expressed confidence in their group's ability to handle the situation, believing the survivor's presence wouldn't significantly affect the outcome of their mission within the gate. A formidable monster emerged, proving resistant to conventional methods of defeat. Suddenly, an urgent warning flashed, announcing the commencement of a dungeon break. The dire message put all life forms inside the gate on a ticking countdown to potential demise. As they entered the portal and arrived in the dungeon, the group proceeded cautiously, with Jinsu leading the way, shield in hand. Leon stood behind the group, with Hari positioned slightly ahead. He understood that most portals closed after a task was completed or after the boss inside was defeated. He relished the idea of facing a boss, but Hari, anxious, struggled to inform him that typically, these situations required a team effort, as bosses tended to overwhelm them, especially when ganging up. As they observed the skeleton strewn across the ground, Leon acknowledged that he was aware of the need for teamwork, having been told that previous dungeon clearances had been attempted. However, he noted that the number of monsters seemed to exceed his expectations. Hari, nervously, explained that the sheer number of monsters was a characteristic of this specific dungeon. Leon was taken aback by the term characteristic. She elaborated that unlike in most gates where the number of monsters decreases with each defeat, in this dungeon, the skeletons, zombies, and even special demons would infinitely respawn as long as the boss monster remained alive. Leon found this interesting and finally understood that the cycle would only end once the boss was defeated. He remarked that this must be one of those boss dungeons, and Hari confirmed, suggesting it must be a necromancer controlling the skeletons. Suddenly, a warning message flashed across the screen, signaling the start of a dungeon break. A red alert read, "Death has been sentenced," imposing a 3-hour time limit on all living beings within the gate. The boss monster, Commander Knight Dullahan, would gather its troops, and they had to defeat the commander within 3 hours. Frozen in place, the group felt the weight of the impending challenge. Jinsu, unable to contain his frustration, shouted curses at Yongwan for failing to warn them about such an obstacle in advance. Hari appeared somewhat nervous, but Leon remained unfazed. The group's attention turned toward a hand gripping a knight's helmet, its eyes emitting a haunting blue glow on a rocky perch. As the horse reared on its hind legs, hundreds of skeletons appeared before the massive boulder. Another window appeared, displaying a countdown. 2 hours and 58 minutes to defeat the Commander Knight, as the skeletons prepared to launch their assault. The skeletons cast a shadow of doubt, lowering the group's morale amidst the looming threat. The group began discussing the overwhelming number of skeletons, with one turning to the manager to inquire about the distribution of potions to boost their spirits. The manager attempted to rally the group, emphasizing the critical need for concentration, especially in allocating potions to the upper ranks. He directed Mashik, a skilled archer, to assess the current number of archers and mages. Mashik activated a skill that allowed him to spot 2 enemy mages and 30 archers. Chief Jinsu commanded the snipers to eliminate long-range fighters and instructed those with shields to block the advancing skeletons. Hundreds of skeletons closed in, launching relentless attacks. Jinsu, shouting, wished the skeletons good luck facing him. As the vanguard, he's skillfully blocking their initial strikes. However, their strength exceeded expectations. Despite the ferocity of their assault, Jinsu concluded that while the orange gates were on a whole different level, they were still manageable for a tank of his rank. Swift and precise, he shattered the skeletons with the prowess of a B-rank tank. Amidst the skirmish, he noticed 2 mages casting spells behind him. Surprised by the advanced skills displayed by mere skeletons, he decided to divert their attention. He shouted, directing the skeleton mages to focus on him. As magical projectiles flew toward him, his comrades grew concerned, but he withstood the onslaught. Reassuring them, he casually mentioned that it was just a minor sting and that his expensive gear had held up. The headless knight stood before him, radiating menace. Unfazed, Jinsu locked eyes with the formidable foe, clad in black armor and surrounded by a blue aura. The knight struck, and though Jinsu barely managed to block the blow, the force threw him back, sending him crashing into a pile of rocks. Hari, gripped with worry, watched helplessly as Jinsu struggled. Eager to assist, another member of the group turned to Hari, seeking guidance on the next move. They questioned whether they should call upon the reserve forces for help. Hari pondered for a moment, recognizing that this was precisely the role of the reserve forces. They needed to act soon. Meanwhile, Jinsu shouted to his forces, remarking that the monster boss wielded the great sword too easily and urging them to stop it. Hari, still considering their options, realized that despite Leon being the king of Lionheart, who had defeated a demon king, there was no time to wait for reinforcements. A solution was urgently needed. Approaching Leon, she pleaded for his assistance. However, Leon remained calm and responded that a king does not intervene in trivial battles. Hari, perplexed, struggled to understand his response. Leon's words suggested that they must find ways to build their own honor. Leon expressed disbelief that Hari would try to force him into assisting with the battle against the skeletons, deeming such an attempt rude to the goddess. He asserted that he could no longer bear to watch the unfolding scene. Frustrated by Leon's indifference, Hari found herself at a loss. The group turned to her, seeking direction on what to do next. While she didn't fully grasp Leon's message, she quickly realized there was no time for contemplation. He had no intention of helping. It seemed to her that he had no interest in anything except the Dullahan. Meanwhile, Leon pondered how the undead moved so fluidly, his mind racing as the time ticked away. Hari's focus, however, had shifted entirely to the Headless Knight. Unsheathing her sword, she made up her mind to defeat the boss. Encouraging the group to support Jinsu and their allies, she fearlessly charged forward. She cut through the ranks of skeletons and used one of their heads as a springboard, propelling herself higher to charge to the Headless Knight. With a powerful strike, she aimed for the knight, but he skillfully parried her attack with his great sword. Despite her disappointment, Hari understood that the key was to separate the knight from the rest of the group. To her surprise, the knight discarded his head, preparing for a devastating attack with his fist. Bracing herself, Hari wondered if the knight had done this to block her view. She tried to block the assault, but the impact sent her flying backward. Unwavering, she quickly regained her composure only to find the Headless Knight standing before her once more. Having partially achieved her goal of separating him from the group, she apologized to her comrades, acknowledging that her range of skills was too large. Suddenly, a colossal explosion engulfed the scene, but the knight effortlessly dispersed it, displaying unyielding resilience. Hari, driven to conclude the battle, launched another strike. The knight, however, easily blocked her strike with his blade, seemingly unharmed. Hari noticed the stance it took as it swung its blade. Just as the strike about to reach her, a voice interrupted the fight, expressing admiration. Leon stepped forward, applauding, and expressed regret to the Headless Knight for underestimating it as merely an undead creature. With a noble gesture, Leon offered the knight the chance for an honorable duel, walking toward Hari and the Death Knight. He insisted there was no need for further casualties among their troops, proposing that the conflict should end with a noble duel between two warriors. Pride in his voice, Leon shouted his proposition, leaving Hari, Jinsu, and even a skeleton among them in utter disbelief. Initially silent, the Headless Knight eventually embraced the challenge. The skeletons lurking in the cave became intrigued by the captivating showdown between Leon and the knight. Slowly, they approached, their hollow eye sockets fixated on the duel with rapt attention. Leon stood confidently before the monstrous boss, displaying a mix of arrogance and respect. He summoned his sword, its gleaming blade catching the faint light, and commanded the Headless Knight to remove his helmet. The knight remained silent, his intentions concealed behind the armor. With unwavering determination, Leon asserted that he was certain the knight fought with a two-handed sword, telling him to discard his helmet. Enveloping his sword with a vibrant golden aura, a manifestation of his skill and power, Leon readied himself. As the imminent clash drew near, Hari approached Leon, informing him that the Headless Knight could only be defeated if decapitated. Unfazed, Leon asked if this detail was crucial to their victory. Hari was taken aback by his brazenness, but affirmed that it was indeed critical. She pondered how Leon intended to emerge victorious if he couldn't execute the decisive blow. Realizing the gravity of their conversation, the knight handed his head to one of the serving skeletons while Leon took a moment to explain his perspective to Hari. Leon emphasized that the duel's outcome hinged on the knight's sense of honor as he and the headless knight assumed their respective starting positions, their focus unwavering. Speaking his name aloud, Leon proclaimed himself the first knight of the goddess of light and justice, Dragonia Archduke, and the lion-hearted king. He then sanctioned the honorable duel with the knight, expecting a reciprocal introduction. However, the knight remained silent. As soon as Leon announced the beginning of the duel and finished uttering his own name, the headless knight gripped his sword with certainty and charged forward, unleashing a powerful attack. To Leon's nonchalant surprise, he effortlessly blocked the strike, his skills far surpassing those of the knight. Observing the knight's movements with a kingly attention, Leon almost anticipated its intentions with precision. He parried the attack, altered its path, and lightly touched the headless knight with his blade, counting 1 to signify the first when he landed. Leon readied his sword once more, aiming it directly at the knight. His voice resonated with determination as he declared the start of the second round. Unfazed, the headless knight raised its sword, preparing for another powerful strike. Hari and Jinsu, witnessing the intense clash, grew increasingly concerned for Leon's safety. Ever the discerning critic, Leon observed the knight's flawed footwork and swiftly brought his sword down. Jinsu and the group could scarcely believe their eyes, their faces displaying a mix of astonishment and bewilderment. Hari found the turn of events nearly unbelievable. The chief turned to her, seeking confirmation whether she saw that. Among them, she was the sole individual truly understanding the intricate nature of the duel. Filled with awe in her voice, she explained how Leon was indeed altering the trajectory of the knight's sword precisely at the moment their blades made contact, executing a daring crosscut, a maneuver rarely attempted by anyone. Undeterred by his previous defeat, the headless knight stood resolute against Leon's determination. The knight displayed a mix of admiration and amusement, standing tall as Leon lightly touched him with the tip of his sword for the second time to signify his second win. Once again, Leon instructing the knight to return to the starting position, acknowledging the knight's overpowering resilience. The ongoing duel between Leon and the headless knight showcased their skill and unwavering resolve with each clash of their blades. The knight pondered, realizing it had been a long time since he encountered a knight who treated him as one and requested a duel. It seemed like a ploy to avoid a difficult situation. Anyone would have thought that the suggestion to dismount from the horse was nonsense. The knight, standing tall with unwavering posture, possessed the demeanor of a seasoned veteran, whose history was woven with countless battles. His starry eyes, ceaselessly pursuing honor and eminence, commanded attention. He contemplated his strategy, preparing for the next sword attack as his foe launched another assault. With grace, Leon struck, easily overpowering Delan. With a flick of his wrist, Leon tossed aside the knight's sword and lightly touched him for the third time. Embodying what he believed to be the essence of an honorable knight, Leon offered the knight a chance for an honorable yield, asked if he wished to continue. The headless knight, as once was an honorable knight's, preferred the challenge of fighting as a knight rather than relying on necromancy. He yearned to engage with Leon countless times, embracing the knightly way. Charging at Leon once more, he launched a relentless series of attacks, but each strike was effortlessly parried. The knight wished not to employ necromancy, but to wield only his blade, reminiscing about dueling famous knights in his past wanderings and honoring the knightly tradition. He had long forgotten the art of combat with honor. Leon's movements flowed with a grace that contrasted the knight's raw power. Leon didn't need to exert much effort, while the headless knight grew increasingly fatigued. After skillfully disarmed the knight, flinging the knight's sword away, Leon tapped his sword on his body for the 10th time. Leon commended the knight, acknowledging the improvement in his swordsmanship, and inquired if the knight was beginning to regain memories from his past life. The knight confirmed this, expressing that indeed, he was returning to the glorious days of his past. Leon addressed the headless knight, asking if he desired to continue the duel. The knight called upon one of his loyal skeletons, which held his detached head. The knight indulged in a moment of reminiscence, reflecting on his extensive history of causing massacres. He lamented how long he had fought without honor and how he had wasted years without purpose. With newfound purpose, he declared that ending his life in this honorable manner would bring him joy. He lifted his head, and offered it to Leon as a symbol of the duel's significance. Filled with a mixture of joy and respect, Leon accepted the once headless knight's gesture. Placing his hand on the knight's head, he offered a prayer, a gentle plea for solace and rest. A bright light illuminated the cave, its radiant glow emanating from the knight and spreading throughout the area. Leon expressed his happiness that the knight had regained his honor, praying that if the knight had a god, that God would grant him peace. If no god accompanied him, Leon hoped a benevolent force would guide him on his journey's end. Leon expressed his desire to reunite with the knight someday, perhaps at a festival in the banquet hall of the gods. As the light grew larger, it enveloped the knight's whole body, dissolving them into nothingness. The Death Knight let out one final prayer, beseeching that glory lie with Leon Dragonia Lionheart. As the brilliance faded, the group found themselves back in the familiar surroundings of the rice fields. Filled with admiration, Hari turned to Jinsu and informed him that Leon had indeed kept his promise, resolving the matter through a duel. They pondered the nature of the magic Leon was displaying, its intricacies and origins. Hari remarked that he should have used that remarkable ability earlier in the battle. Overhearing their conversation, Leon explained that had he done so, the headless knight would have perished as a necromancer. Hari greeted him, appreciating his wisdom and adherence to the principles of honor. Leon continued, elaborating that a true knight lives for honor, and honor is born from deeds. Deeds can only happen when one possesses the will to undertake them. In the end, the headless knight received what he deserved, an honorable defeat that restored his lost honor. Leon then wondered aloud about the loot of the night, shifting the focus to his next objective. Hari, Jinsu, and Leon began inspecting the spoils of the duel. The knight's sword, a cloak, and a mysterious purple orb radiating with a vibrant violet aura. While Hari and Jinsu were surprised to see the loot, Leon remained unimpressed. Jinsu immediately noticed the orb's significance and concluded that it was far too costly. To his dismay, Leon destroyed it without hesitation, stunning everyone present. Leon explained that such items only bring chaos and destruction. That is how the Honam Gates raid was ended. Later, at the Leon's accommodation, Hari let out a deep sigh as she stood still, holding a cart filled with expensive food. Her face was filled with dread as she reflected on how, after only 4 days on Earth, Leon had already caused her to lose all hope. The first problem arose when Hari approached Leon about taxes. He shouted at her, questioning how a king of another nation could be asked to pay taxes. She suggested that he could pay using mana stones, but Leon dismissed the idea, stating that a king does not count as coins. He then questioned why she was discussing such matters, telling her that they should be handled by those under him, urging her to stop talking about coins as it was not his job. The second problem occurred when they gained new followers due to the introduction of divine power into the land. An elder asked how much they should pay in taxes, and with a serious face, Leon replied that they should pay him 19 trillion won and 90% of their crops as tithe. His sarcastic tone caused the elder to step back in fear. The taxes and the cost of living were already overwhelming, and the requirement of 90% of their crop yield seemed insane. Interrupting, Leon stated that as followers of the goddess, they shouldn't worry about being hungry. He assured them that welfare, the cost of living, and food would be taken care of by his guild. Hari then showed them a piece of paper revealing the incredibly high appraisal value of the rice. 15 billion won for 80 kilograms of blessed rice. The elders were surprised and praised Leon, realizing the enormous wealth they could amass even after the 90% tax deduction. They believed money reigned supreme. However, the primary concern remained Leon's residence in the apartment. When Leon entered, he began shouting, lamenting how the space resembled a battlefield. He complained about the absence of artwork and expressed his frustrations in a fit of rage, demanding a luxurious bed, standby servants, and constant access to artwork. This left Hari speechless. Hours passed as Hari tirelessly made calls until 2 in the morning, seeking luxurious accommodations for the king in 5-star hotels. She even kneeled, imploring him to rest so she could as well. Eventually, a compromise was struck. They settled on displaying a painting or ceramic piece in the room. In the present, Hari called out to Leon, addressing him as His Majesty. He invited her in, and she approached with a cart, though extremely exhausted. She inquired about his well-being, and he assured her that he was fine. She informed him that it was time for breakfast, and he asked if she had eaten. She admitted that she hadn't and advised her to eat whenever she could. He emphasized the importance of not skipping meals. Hari took note of his advice, eyeing the variety of delicious food laid out on the table. She contemplated enjoying a sandwich later, but to her surprise, Leon insisted that she take a seat. Shocked and touched by the gesture, Hari teared up at the thought of sharing a meal with him. She called him His Majesty and giggled happily as she sat at the table. However, Leon interrupted her, questioning her actions with an intense glare that confused her. He asked about her expression, instead of ensuring that the ribs were easy to eat for him. She explained that she thought they were going to share the food. Leon refuted that notion, stating that a country's king and peasants do not dine together. She fell silent, refraining from further speech. Moments later, inside Black Limousine, she informed Leon about the Hunter Association's decision to provide him with support, funding, and resettlement aid. She assured him that, while it may not be as good as a palace, they had ensured his comfort. Leon responded with gratitude, stating that he shouldn't ask for too much. As Leon was just a guest, he left it to her to handle the details. Turning to inquire about the loot distribution, he was reminded by Hari to manage it herself, though he expressed a particular interest in the cape, admitting he liked it. Nervously agreeing, Hari proceeded, and soon, they arrived at a beautiful, tall building. She informed Leon of their proximity to the Hunter Association, mentioning that the building had a helicopter pad on the top floor for convenience. "Not bad, His Majesty," she remarked. He simply nodded in response. As they walked, Leon noticed a statue resembling something peculiar. He expressed his confusion about it, but before he could dwell on it, someone greeted them, much to Hari's surprise. She had assumed Leon's presence here was meant to be a secret and questioned who the man was. The man, Park Jongchong, introduced himself as a member of the Deus Group and the director of Food of the Future. Hari smiled upon hearing the name Deus Group, acknowledging it as one of the nation's 3 major conglomerates, a truly wealthy company. She wondered aloud why the director was waiting for them. Zhongchang's glance carried an unsettling intention as he reached out his hand to shake Leon's. He remarked about the famous survivor, and with an evil smile, greeted Leon as Dragonia Lionheart. Leon remained silent, his expression one of disgust, questioning why a mere merchant would want to shake hands with him. Later, Hari and Leon found themselves in a room. She explained that the Hunter Association would provide the space for a year, covering utilities, rent, and offering room service and cleaning. Leon stared out of the window, simply acknowledging her words. Hari felt relieved, knowing that information about survivors was top secret, especially given Zhongchang's unknown intentions. She was glad Leon had ignored the director's offers. Curious, Hari turned to Leon and asked why Zhongchang had wanted to see him. Leon gave a blunt observation. There's only one thing a merchant would want, which is profit. The word echoed in Hari's mind, and she soon realized the reason: the blessed rice from the Honan Plains. The management of information had not gone smoothly, as a streamer had recorded the situation despite the Hunter Association's request for deletion. Glancing at her phone, Hari saw that the video had been re-uploaded under the account named Farmer Mr. Park. The scene shifted to Zhongchang's phone, where he was angrily cursing at Leon, calling him an arrogant little savage. He questioned a worker about the rice's effects, expressing concern since it had only been tested on rats, not humans. The worker hesitated to respond immediately. Suddenly, a lady chimed and reported to him that they had visited the owner of the rice field to gather more information. She explained that a dying dog had miraculously recovered after consuming the rice. Furthermore, people suffering from various illnesses, chronic inflammation, and sinus infections had experienced improvements and were cured after eating the rice. Both minor and major diseases throughout the village were seemingly cured by the rice's consumption. Zhongchang's smile broadened upon hearing the confirmation of the rice's effects, validating its potential on rats despite the lack of human testing data. However, his expression quickly shifted to anger as he recalled Leon's dismissive words, referring to him as a mere merchant despite his position as the head of the Deus Group. The lady emphasized the necessity of acquiring the rice at all costs due to its unparalleled potential. Zhongchang's grimace intensified as he slammed his hand onto the table, loudly questioning how Leon dared to look down on them. His rage grew as he saw Leon's actions as a provocation, believing that he had picked the wrong enemy over something as trivial as fancy rice. With a smirk, Zhongchang saw Leon as akin to other survivors, whom he considered arrogant for thinking their world was superior. He contemplated unsettling Leon with a cultural clash, dialing his phone while muttering the words savage and frustration. Meanwhile, upon his return to Earth, Leon had set himself 3 goals. The first goal involved spreading faith in divinity. Earth hosted numerous gods and followers, but the absence of actual divine power was a critical concern. A true God was meant to embody faith and bestow blessings upon the world. Yet humanity was plagued by illnesses, and the lands were growing increasingly contaminated. To harness divine power, there was a crucial need for a new faith, one that would require more people to believe in a fresh deity. The second goal was the establishment of the Knights Templar on Earth, an organization of 5 knights that currently did not exist. Using divine power, if the guardian of the Holy Grail, the king of the Lionheart, was considered a demigod, then the Knights Templar would be regarded as saints. They would embody the essence of divine power, wielding it against evil forces with fervor and dedication. The final objective revolved around eradicating all evil on Earth by reclaiming divine power and elevating the Knights Templar. Standing beside a window, Leon pondered the necessity of spreading faith and preserving balance within the pantheon to elevate the Knights Templar, even though the concept of their existence on Earth might seem implausible. However, such thoughts didn't concern him much when Hari informed him of an official meeting request. He suggested there was no harm in hearing the person out, as they had followed the proper procedures. Later, John Chong and 2 others entered the room where Leon was seated. The director expressed gratitude for Leon granting the meeting, but as he gazed thoughtfully at him, it seemed as though he was delving into the man's very essence. Internally, John Chong contemplated whether he should lower himself for the sake of business, referring to Leon as a foolish savage. Despite his internal musings, he smiled and presented a large silver case to Leon, encouraging him to accept it. He anticipated surprise at its contents and eagerly unveiled the luxury items inside, believing that Leon could never imagine encountering such opulence. John Chong was convinced that once Leon experienced these items, he wouldn't be able to go back. He expected Leon to beg him to become his manager. Pride in his voice, Leon acknowledged Zhang Chang's effort and decided to accept the gift. Meanwhile, Zhang Chang pondered Leon's manner of accepting the gift, seemingly as if he was doing a favor by taking it. Externally, Zhang Chang maintained his smiling facade, encouraging Leon to inspect the gift. Unfazed, Leon told Hari that there was no need for elaborate explanations about etiquette. He simply instructed her to open the gift. She nodded and approached the silver case, tapping it lightly. Steam and smoke billowed out, startling her as she observed its contents. Meanwhile, Zhang Chang chuckled softly as the case revealed a collection of elite weapons, renowned possessions of their group. He intended for Leon to choose whatever he desired. Hari, intrigued, asked if these weapons were unique ranked items crafted by the master craftsmen of the Deus group. Zhang Chang, brimming with pride, confirmed that all the weapons were indeed of unique rank, the best of the best. He explained to Leon that as he was transitioning into becoming a hunter, these weapons would be incredibly beneficial. Hari was taken aback by the generous offer of such extraordinary weapons. Her mind raced at the thought of possessing items that couldn't even be bought with money. She had only seen them on YouTube back when she was a student. However, Leon declined the offer, deeming these magnificent weapons as low-ranked. Both Hari and Zhang Chang were shocked at how dismissively Leon regarded these remarkable weapons. Leon clarified his stance, stating that a good sword cannot be forged without the star's aura or a holy blessing. He questioned whether they solely relied on weapons to hunt beasts, causing sweat to trickle down Zhang Chang's face as he pondered Leon's thoughts. He interpreted Leon's words as implying that weapons should be sun-dried like peppers and receive blessings from a priest. Leon labeled Zhang Chang as an unfaithful merchant, but Zhang Chang dismissed it as a misunderstanding. Leon further remarked that merchants were obligated to flaunt their items wherever they went. As if conjuring a sword out of the air, Leon considered Zhang Chang's weapons suitable only for killing chickens and cows. Nevertheless, he was willing to give them a try. Zhang Chang and his men were astonished to witness Leon summoning an old sword into the air, wondering if that was all he possessed and if he had gravely underestimated their weaponry. Zhang Chang expressed his desire to see what Leon's sword could do and asked Hari if she would be willing to try one of those weapons. Taken aback by the request, Hari sought approval from Leon, who nodded in agreement. As she approached the silver case, she contemplated her choice. Eventually, her hand found the handle of a sword, and upon unsheathing it, a sharp blade emitting a red aura was revealed. This particular sword, named Dawn, was crafted by the renowned master craftsman, Jinshul, and had been Huri's admiration for 4 years. Examining it closely, she felt its power, realizing it had absorbed dense sun energies from a special gate for 10 days. When she sought Leon's approval to wield the sword, he questioned why she needed permission to swing what he considered a mere toy. This caused internal frustration for Zhang Chong, who silently insulted Leon. Prepared, Hari geared up to swing the sword at Leon's blade. Concentration enveloped her as flames began to encircle her weapon. Meanwhile, Leon maintained a composed stance, flexing his blade with determination. She raised the sword high, its flames erupting fiercely with incredible power. As she swung down, releasing torrents of flames, she announced her action, signaling her readiness. To the surprise of both Hari and Zhang Chong, her blade shattered into pieces. Hari stood frozen in disbelief as her sword broke, while Leon's blade remained unscathed by her powerful attack. Leon casually set aside his sword, deeming Zhang Chang's weapon worse than anticipated and a complete waste of time. With a piercing glare at Zhang Chong, he declared that the meeting would be limited to just 3 minutes. Zhang Chong, appearing submissive, was unable to respond, grappling to regain his composure after witnessing the Duyung group's supposed strongest weapon shatter before him. Zhang Chong and his group bowed their heads humbly, seeking patent rights over the rice grains from Leon. Perplexed, Leon sought clarification, prompting Zhang Chong to swiftly assure him of their willingness to pay. He confidently stated that the group was offering 180 billion for the rights. Zhang Chong knew well that the rice, capable of curing cancer, was worth far more than that, but he understood that the savage Leon did not comprehend the true value of 180 billion. Expecting its worth could drive him crazy. When Leon inquired if Zhang Chong wanted to buy the rice with money, he agreed, but with a condition. Leon must sign a contract granting the Duyung group a monopoly over it. He even suggested that if Leon desired, he could increase the price a little. Hearing this, anger flared within Leon like a glorious lion. He questioned Zhang Chong, asking if he dared to insult divinity. With immense strength, Leon unleashed his fury, left Zhang Chong and his group overwhelmed and powerless. They resembled frightened little puppies in his intimidating presence. Zhang Chong trembled in fear, convinced that his life would end as he faced Leon, who seemed like a gigantic lion with fiery, glowing eyes. Leon looked at him, calling him a fool, stating that he had confessed his sins. Overwhelmed, Zhang Chong fell to his knees, admitting that he didn't fully comprehend his mistake. With a gesture, Leon released the immense pressure and questioned Zhang Chang's ignorance and lack of civility. Leon explained that the crops came from land blessed by the goddess Demera. This blessing rewarded hardworking farmers who sweat and labor in the fields. It was not something that could simply be purchased with money. A grateful heart and faith served as the necessary payment. Leon criticized him, branding him as childish and a lowly creature who solely pursued profits by deceiving others. He questioned Zhang Chang's desire to possess divine products from a goddess he didn't even believe in. Afterward, Zhang Chong left, and night fell. Hari questioned Leon's decision to let him go so easily. She highlighted Zhang Chang's significant influence, despite being a lowly merchant. However, Leon dismissed the idea, stating that he was unaffected by someone as vulgar as him and considered it unworthy of concern. Changing the subject, he asked if she had prepared what he requested. Hari brought something over and mentioned the association's call, asking if he planned on taking the test himself. She suggested that it might simplify things. Leon was surprised by the suggestion and questioned the absurdity of her advice, asking why a king would need a test. Shocked by his response, she asked how he intended to proceed. Leon revealed his plan to search for skilled soldiers and asserted that he would personally test them. Hari quietly acknowledged the difficulty of his request, but Leon insisted on making it possible. His resolve brought tears to her eyes. A few days later, a black car was parked outside a large building. Inside, a surprised voice remarked on the unexpected sight, noting the person's presence once again that year. The voice belonged to team manager Kim Do-han. He greeted the man, mentioning that he hadn't seen him in a long time. The man introduced himself as Gu Daesung, an unaffiliated hunter. Do-han speculated that Daesung was there for a retest, praising his dedication and hard work. He inquired about Daesung's progress this year and predicted a swift rise in his rank. Daesung replied that he had to give his best shot. The old man extended an invitation for Daesung to join his team. Daesung, contemplating, reflected that even those without exceptional talent attained a C rank, yet he had remained a D-rank hunter for 10 years. Dohan praised his dedication and competence, assuring him that he would swiftly become an ace. He mentioned that while many considered mining to be hard labor, being on the team wasn't bad. Daesung acknowledged his 10 years of hard work, but remained resolute in his determination to continue improving. He reflected on his family and the challenge of repaying debts with earnings from dungeon raids. He needed to raise his rank to S rank so that he would no longer be a burden. Dohan looked surprised and informed Daesung about a foreigner who had caught their attention. They pondered whether he was European or a foreign. Despite his fair complexion, they were surprised and wondered if there were still economically struggling countries in the West. Their attention remained to Leon, who carried himself with an air of royalty. Dohan called out to Leon, referring to him as a young man, catching his attention. He then greeted Leon, who remained silent. Exuding a menacing presence, Leon questioned why a commoner was addressing him. Daesung witnessed the profound unease etched on Dohan's face, as if his very soul had abandoned him. Daesung remained anxious, telling Dohan that the foreigner had learned Korean in a peculiar manner, which Dohan acknowledged. When Leon locked eyes with Daesung, the man trembled in fear, sensing the overwhelming aura emanating from Leon's dominant presence. Dohan, noticing Daesung's reaction, questioned what was wrong, sensing the unease as he felt small and insignificant under Leon's immense pressure. An employee called out for number 57, instructing Daesung to proceed to interview room 2. He acknowledged and prepared to go, but Leon's intense gaze unsettled him. During the interaction with the employee, Leon contemplated his disappointment. He realized he hadn't come here for strong individuals, as no one seemed worthy of becoming a soldier. He considered that only low-ranked individuals or recent awakenings bothered to take the test. Then, an announcement called for number 77, Leon Dragonia Lionheart, to proceed to interview room 9. Leon pondered that he couldn't expect much from the outset. Upon entering the room, he found others already inside. One man addressed him by his name, Leon Dragonia, but Leon rebuked him, demanding to be addressed as His Majesty. Initially stunned, the man complied and adopted the respectful address. The man requested that Leon place his hand on a measuring device for the test. Leon intensely contemplated its purpose, delving deeply into its meaning. The instructor, noticing Leon's reaction, checked his chart, but Leon labeled him a fool, leaving the instructor bewildered. Leon argued, questioning how a peasant could dare to test the honor of a knight. The instructor attempted to clarify that the device conducted the test, not them, but Leon remained upset, criticizing the judges. He asserted that only honorable knights and gods could measure knightly strength, expressing disbelief that a mere machine could do so. The judges were shocked and confused, questioning Leon's presence. In response, Leon clarified that he had arrived in search of capable soldiers, only to be disheartened by the realization that even the judges themselves appeared lacking in competence. The judges were taken aback to realize that Leon was openly headhunting. He informed them that there was no one he found suitable and inquired about the next test. The judges then informed him about a test at the gate. Leon acknowledged that real skills were demonstrated through consistent training and realistic situations. His agreement to participate surprised the judges. At the Soul Gate, a voice asked if anyone felt dizzy or unwell, mentioning that some people suffer from motion sickness when passing through the gate. The Soul Gate, which typically closes after clearance, was left open for specific situations, serving as an example here. Daesung reflected that this year's strength measurement wasn't much different from the previous year. He realized he needed to excel here for better results. A girl admired the interior of the place and asked her older brother if it was a popular spot, but he advised her to turn off her phone. Daesung noticed them, recognizing the newcomers. An old man nearby commented on the pleasant air. Daesung estimated that they were all either D or C rank hunters. However, when he turned around, he spotted Leon, whom he recognized as a foreign. He considered Leon a newcomer due to his age and presence, speculating that he was there for testing. He worried that, except for the old man, everyone else seemed inexperienced and wondered if everything would be all right. Leon, sporting sunglasses and emitting a cool vibe, grabbed his attention once more. As the group assembled in the middle of the fields, they began with introductions before assessing their positions. Daesung introduced himself, saying that this marked his 10th year as a hunter. He specialized as a warrior and primarily served as a dealer. The siblings followed with their introductions. Taehoon, having awakened this year, wielded a shield and spear, while Nayeon primarily used daggers and was learning archery. Daesung was surprised, realizing that they were complete beginners who hadn't settled on their main weapons. He inquired if they had undergone training at the center, and the siblings enthusiastically mentioned their 3-month training, which left him in further shock. He then approached the old man, Gangtae, who introduced himself as being in his 5th year and using a gauntlet as his weapon. Despite awakening, he had recently resigned. Daesung feared that the old man's experience might be lacking, especially since he used a gauntlet, indicating that he was a close-range fighter. Turning to the last person, Leon, he asked if he was a foreign or if he spoke Korean. In response, Leon stared in silence for a moment before declaring that he did not fight. He explained that he could not use a sword meant for slaying dragons to kill chickens. This confused Daesung even more, making him wonder where Leon had learned Korean. As the group traveled through the forest, they recalled the test requirements, hunting down 50 kobolds. They recalled the instructor's advice, which mentioned that occasionally a gnoll might appear on the field. If it posed too much danger, he would step in, relieving them of worry and allowing them to focus solely on showcasing their skills. Daesung remained concerned as he glanced at his team members, noticing Taehoon looking nervous. He wondered if the test would go smoothly, given the earlier events. A flashback revealed Daesung asking Leon if he had brought any weapons. Nayeon then approached Leon, addressing him as a handsome man and offering him weapons such as the bow and arrow, asking if he knew how to use them. Leon gripped the bow, staring at it, and asked her if she wanted him to use it. She happily agreed, telling him he could return it later. Anger surged within him as he tightly gripped the bow, slamming it onto the ground and shouting that a knight should not use a long-range weapon like a coward. The team was shocked by his outburst as Nayeon cried out in distress over her bow, while Daesung stood speechless, staring at him in stunned silence while the team questioned Leon's actions. The instructor chuckled and advised them to get going. Back in the present, Daesung continued to worry that the test might fail. Leading the group, he turned to them and mentioned knowing of a location where they could hunt. The siblings agreed, but Leon remained silent, and the old man was content either way. Taehoon then mentioned a settlement at the end of the terrain where many kobolds were said to be. Daesung acknowledged the advice, but explained that their group was too small and that it would be almost impossible to escape if they were surrounded. He suggested hunting the kobolds in the caves instead, proposing that they set nearby grass and leaves on fire to create smoke and then proceed to the caves for an easier hunt. The siblings were impressed by his plan, praising his expertise, but Daesung modestly laughed off their compliments. He admitted that it was nothing to boast about, having studied tutorials and various methods while aspiring to enter a higher-ranked gate. Yet, circumstances had led him to this particular one, and despite this, his determination remained strong. Tired of staying in D rank for so long, he was determined to advance this time. Suddenly, Taehoon stuttered out a warning, shouting about kobolds as a group appeared. Daesung swiftly unsheathed his sword, directing the boy to block the incoming kobolds with his shield as the creatures rushed toward them. With a decimating attack crashed on their faces, Taehoon wondered if they were foolish for running straight at him, finding it easy to block their attacks. Stunned, he faced another one flying toward him, just as Nayeon screamed, warning him about one in front of him. Daesung failed to intervene in time, and the kobold grabbed Taehoon and slamming him into the ground. Fear gripped the young boy as the kobold was stabbed right before him. Daesung warned him not to lower his guard, emphasizing that the kobolds, despite their weakness, were swift. Despite Daesung's warning, Taehoon continued to scream as other kobolds were shot down with arrows, and one was punched in the jaw. The old man effortlessly dispatched a kobold with his fists. Eventually, almost everyone on the team defeated the kobolds, earning praise from Daesung. Taehoon apologized for his mistake, feeling disheartened, but Daesung reassured him that it was understandable, as it had been his first encounter. He commended Nayeon for her 2 kills, and the elderly man ensured that everyone was unharmed, bringing smiles to their faces. Reflecting on the moment, Daesung thought that he could handle it, starting with anxiety but considering it a decent party, except for one person. He felt uneasy, noticing Leon standing still, seemingly curious. Taehoon questioned Leon about his lack of participation, while Nayeon expressed her dissatisfaction with him merely observing from a distance, wondering if it was acceptable behavior. Nervously, the instructor assured them that he would take this into account when grading. They collectively decided to venture deeper into the forest toward a cave. Daesung suggested continuing onward, assuring them they would reach the cave soon. As they arrived, He instructed them to gather dry leaves and branches at the entrance to set a fire, as planned. While preparing to light the fire, Leon confronted him, questioning the effectiveness of his plan. Daesung defended his method and pointed out Leon's lack of assistance during their mission. In a serious tone, Leon asked if that was truly the best Daesung could do, warning him not to make him repeat himself. Daesung asserted that he had used this method successfully 3 times before, but Leon challenged his reliance on past experience, questioning how he could depend on it with limited understanding. This enraged Daesung, who shouted back, considered Leon as younger, claiming that experience didn't matter. Defiantly, he proceeded to light the fire, filling the air with smoke. As the smoke filled the cave, they braced themselves for the incoming kobolds. Taehun shouted a warning as the kobolds charged out, and the group retaliated, wielding their weapons despite the chaos. Daesung remained confident in his method, urging the others to eliminate all the creatures. He pondered the potential gains of slaying the kobolds here, even targeting a few gnolls in the plains. He knew it would be beneficial. However, their progress was abruptly halted by intense growling. The sound sent shivers down his spine, and sweat dripped from his face as he spun around. He recognized the monster and immediately knew it was a Null Captain. An entity with red, glowing eyes emerged from the trees, breathing heavily. Daesung's heart sank as he realized that the Null Captain was the boss of the Soul Station Gate, one rank higher than the kobolds. The creature let out a fierce roar, directed at Daesung, instilling fear in him. Daesung wondered why it had to appear at that moment as the Null Captain continued its intense growling in the forest.